Today, my guest is Tara Allen. She's a great friend who started her real estate career with Keller Williams in 2012 and soon rose to the top of the industry, selling 66 houses her first year and earning KW's International Rookie of the Year award. She built her team, the Allen Real Estate Team. In 2014, she became a MAPS coach, and in 2017, a KWU approved trainer and MAPS Bold coach. So excited for her right now as she's doing this career, and she just keeps going higher and higher. Through the MREA model, she went on to create a multi-million-dollar team that has sold over 2,000 homes. She has helped over 2,000 families thus far, and it's earned her a seat in the Gary Keller's top agent group. 2019, she won the title of the #1 team in her market center, and she's kept that title for the last 6 years. Welcome, Tara. I appreciate you being here. I'm excited to have a conversation with you and help others.
Hi, Diana. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you today.
Well, we're excited to have you here because I know your story, and I want all the listeners to understand because, see, before you got into real estate and had this massive success that you've enjoyed, where were you? Tell us a little bit about your back history.
Well, Diana, that's kind of an interesting story. Growing up, I always had a lot of energy and I just didn't know where to, maybe spend that energy. And so growing up, I was a little bit of a troublemaker. I was in and out of jail several times between the ages of like 13 and 21 years old. One day I actually had a defining moment, Diana. It was the last time that I was in jail. I remember I kind of looked in the mirror at myself and it just hit different. I saw something different. And what I realized was that, I was a little bit disappointed. I realized I'm better than this. I can do something different. And at that moment, I made a decision, and I remember that moment. I said, I'm done with this. I need to get out of this hamster wheel that I was in, because once you get in it, it's really hard to get out. And from that point, I decided I was going to up and just move to what we call the big city in South Dakota, Sioux Falls, and take myself out of the environment, the decisions that I kept making over and over, and change my life. And so I did. I loaded up my car. I moved to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where I still reside with my family. And I enrolled in school, ended up getting my bachelor's degree in business, first college graduate in my family, and was in, I've always had like 3 jobs growing up. I should mention that, right? I was in trouble a lot, and yet I always worked hard. And so I understood that hard work ethic because I learned that from my dad and my mom. They worked hard. They did the best they could. Once that decision was made, it was just very clear when I took that energy and spent it in the right direction that I could do anything.
Well, you're still very, very energetic. Yet at that moment, did you have any regrets?
You know what? I don't. You know what? Because you want to know why? It's part of my story and it's part of my journey. And at that time, when I made that decision, what I actually did, Diane, is I sat down and I wrote I remember it was like 16 to 20 pages long. I wrote this long letter of all of the things that I wish were different in my past, the decisions I made, any regrets, people, forgive others and to forgive myself. And once I wrote it all out there, I ripped up the letter and I just decided I wasn't going to look back. And that was that. That didn't define who I was. I understood that that's who I was being at that time, and that I could be anyone that I wanted. And so once I made that decision and let all those things go, I was free. I was free of letting go of the things that weren't serving me.
The thing I like about that is literally your intentionality. We know the way the brain works, and you can't just leave something. You were getting into trouble because there was a payoff somewhere for that, somewhere in your life. Maybe it was the pain that you were running away from and jail was the answer. Maybe it was the recognition. Who knows? We're not sure. Yet the minute you made the decision, this isn't for me, this isn't who I am, you took action and you were very intentional. You write this letter. Is there any other things that you did specifically to go from where you were to getting your brain to work a little bit different and focus on other things?
I think specifically it was I decided that I was going to make myself busy doing things that made my life better rather than destructed my life. And so at that point, entering into school, having two jobs, I didn't have time to get in trouble, right? So I was busy working my jobs, doing the schoolwork, and then also just like surrounding myself with different people and starting a little bit. I think that's really when I started kind of my self growth journey a little bit too, of kind of reading some books on mindset, things like that, and it just changed me. It gave me hope. It gave me direction. I felt more purposeful, and it just built from there.
With you going through college, now, did you pay your own way through college?
I sure did.
I
What? Actually,
figured.
my first year in real estate, I had hanging right above my computer on my wall. Like everyone in the office could see it. I had 85 chains hanging from my ceiling, and I had this piece of paper with this number. I want to say it was like 60,000 or something, because it was student loans, it was credit cards, it was like all this debt. I mean, I was so stupid with money, and I still could get better, by the way. and
Aren't we all right?
and and yet, what I did was every time that I got a check, I would pay towards that, and I actually ended up paying off all my debt within the first year of real estate.
Now that's incredible. Yet you kept track. It was measurable, it was specific, you knew exactly what you were going to do. Once again, that intentionality showing. So you had the chains on one side, you had the debt on the other. Explain that a little bit more to help our people get a visual.
Yeah, well, so so first of all, in between this, I worked in call centers for 5 years, right? While I was serving, I was in bartending, serving, things like that. And what I did was I was on the phone all day, every day for 5 years, selling credit cards and then selling phone, cable, and internet. And what I knew is that I was really good on the phone, right? And so coming into real estate, I wasn't afraid to be on the phone. And I actually was reading a book, Think Big and Kick Ass by Donald Trump. Okay, this is 13 years ago, so whatever you want to say. And I thought I can do that. And so when I got my license, I just got on the phone, Diana. I took Bold and I did what Bold told me to do. And it changed my life. 3 months into real estate, by the way, I didn't have any money when I came in. So I cashed out my only 401k. It was like $6,000. Little did I know I'd have to pay back like $1,500 at the end of the year. Now, I'm not saying to do that. And it's what I needed to do to get by. And that's how I paid for Bold and got my start in real estate.
Well, with Bold, I mean, that's near and dear to my heart. And there's a lot of agents that did take it and did very, very well in it. Yet you did it. There were people that took Bold that didn't do that great. And you have a saying, something like, well, everyone can do it, yet not everyone does. Why do you think they don't?
Man, that seeing the good in everybody and believing that you really can do anything you want, be anywhere you want in 5 years, is like a double-edged sword, I almost think, because it just breaks my heart. I'm like, okay, you know what you need to do, just do it, right? And that's part of what I want to ask you, Diana. I mean, what do you think? I know it's, you got to connect with your why, right? And it's the pleasure or pain, and figure out, are you moving from pain? Are you moving towards pleasure? What is the big why behind it? And it puts you into action, right? And yet so many, and that is what I say. I say, okay, great. So you did Bold. Did you just take Bold, or did you actually do Bold? Because that's the difference maker, right? And
Yeah.
I think, I mean, what do you think? I think it's confidence. It's believing in yourself. A lot of people want the confidence before they'll do the work. And what I've realized is that as I do the work, I get the confidence. And so if people can just get over those limiting beliefs of like, I have to have it all figured out before I go do it, they'll find that they can do it by just doing it.
Yeah, it's like taking the first step. I mean, for heaven's sakes, if we felt that way when we were babies, none of us would be walking, right? I mean, look how many times we had to fall before we got back up. And speaking of that first year in real estate, you sold 66 homes. I mean, there's people out there that have been in 20 years not selling 66 homes. Was there something that was driving you? Was there a way that you kept track of how many families you were helping?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had that chain link. So every time I'd have a closing, I'd cut the chain link, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I did have a really big why, because a couple months in, I found I was pregnant with my first baby with no savings and all this debt and no idea what I was doing. And so, I mean, I'd be the first one at the office at 6 a.m. and the last one to leave at midnight sometimes. Wow. I mean, I remember my broker stopped in at like 11:30 one night, and I was like 8 months pregnant. And he's like, go home. I'm like, okay.
So that work ethic kicked in, and you were just willing to do the things that nobody else would do, and you did them consistently. How important is consistency in the business, any business?
It's everything. I always say consistency is the master key to freedom. And I feel like a lot of people look at consistency or discipline as like a bad thing. And it's like, no, no, if you can just be disciplined and consistent in the like three main areas of your life, which by the way can all be done by like 11 o'clock every single day, it changes everything, right? I mean, you just have to be disciplined until 11 or 12 o'clock every day in this business.
Well, so you were in this call center. Was there ever a time that you were afraid to pick up the phone? Because a lot of people are.
I suppose maybe at the beginning, but not really, because at the end of the day, I'm like, well, if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, right? And we're in this business, like life's all about relationships. And so I think if you change your mindset to like a conversation is a relationship and we're building relationships and we're helping people, then what's so scary about that, right? And people are so scared to cold call. I actually preferred that. I loved it because who cares if they hung up on me or if they were rude, right? I'm never going to see them again. They don't know who I am. I don't know who they are, right? Like, what do you have to lose?
Yet a lot of people, they almost like want to go home and cry, right? Because somebody hung up on them, and it really wasn't about them. Was there anybody in the call center that was having some call reluctance, that they were frightened, that maybe you helped them get over it?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just always the fear of the unknown. And once you do it, you start to learn and then it gets easier, right? And so that's where that role play comes in, right? Practice and role play. And that is what kind of helps build your confidence. And also, I mean, just go ahead and do it. And helping people see through when they actually do take action, what is possible, right?
Yeah, so you built this team. How did you get your team? Are they on the phones every day? Are they doing any type of lead generation daily? And if so, how did you get them to do that?
I'm always honest, right? And I think that we can always all get better. And it's like, it's that everybody, it's like, oh, I really need business. So then everybody gets really busy making the calls and then they get busy and it ends up being that roller coaster, right? And yet what our team has done has really just turned our focus to our database, right? And so we do a really great job of loving on our database and doing client events and those types of things. And so it truly is just deepening those relationships. And yet when new agents come on, they absolutely need to be on those phones 1 to 2 hours a day so that they can build that foundation.
Mm-hmm. And so do you teach them what to say? Do you role play a lot?
Oh yeah. They have to master their scripts at the beginning, right? I mean, you shouldn't practice on real people. How much does that
what
cost
you
you?
just said, and that's what I want to get across to the people. You and I, we couldn't imagine talking about something that we didn't know. So how do you get to know it? You practice it. So do you role play personally with your people, or do you just have them role play with one another?
Once, not consistently. I don't, and I need to. But yeah, we do enough. I mean, we do our fair share of role play and practicing our presentations. And I say all the time, like, unless you're willing to get on the phone and role play with Dianna Kokoszka, right? Or Gary Keller, or, all these people, when people think they don't need to practice on their skill, I'm like, okay, well, would you get on stage and role play in front of 10,000 people? And they're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to practice, right?
Yeah, that is so fun, because one of the times I was doing a coaching session for Keller Williams. They were videotaping it, right? And Gary walks in and he goes, hey, I'll role play with you. And so we sat there and he was the buyer. And it was really interesting because the objection that he finally gave me, because we were moving forward, and then all of a sudden he goes, you know what? I don't like the sidewalk. I said, well, that's a first. I've never had a buyer say that to me, that you don't like the sidewalk. Do you think you should remove it and just put grass in? And if so, would you go to the city to have that done, or would you just do it yourself without the city's approval? And he goes, you're not going to let me go, are you? And I said, no, I'm not going to let you go. For heaven's sakes, we're filming this. If we weren't filming it, I'd say that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. You don't like the sidewalk. Yet, if somebody gave you that, and you may think in your head, that's a crazy objection, yet is it? If it's an objection they have, and do you role play through the crazy objections? And are you willing to take them on? Because I know you are.
Well,
You wouldn't be where you're at today without taking on the objections and handling those and caring so deeply about the people. So how did you develop handling all those objections and showing that you care instead of just rattling them off like some script?
Well, it all comes down to the quality of the questions, right? And when we stay in curiosity and ask the right questions, it'll all work itself out, right?
It does. And do you think people practice asking questions?
They sure should. That is one of the things, one of my favorite exercises that we did in coaches training was we had to take our presentation and we had to turn it all around in questions. So we had to get what was it? We had to get all the scripts across, and all you could do was ask questions. So whatever they said, all you could do was ask questions the entire time. And that took you from here to here. I mean, when you realize that you can actually get across an entire page of points through just questions, and you can have entire conversations without actually saying anything, only taking what they said and turn it into a question, that is amazing. Everyone should do that.
I was just on a call just recently with my mentorship group, and we were talking about that, and I was talking about that coaching skills camp where we actually did that with the coaches. And it is amazing how you can get everything across through questions and know where your people are instead of you just assuming that you know where they're at. And I mean, you've always dreamed big. You've always been willing to do whatever it took. In essence, you've paid the price to reach your goals. So
Yes.
what advice do you have for people in one, setting goals, and then two, making certain that you track where you're at with those goals?
I mean, it comes down to first visioning it, right? Like, do you have a clear vision? Like, I always love the bold exercise or the just exercise to sit there and be quiet with your thoughts and just close your eyes and just think about if you and I were sitting here, Dianna, and we looked back and we said, oh my gosh, I had the absolute best year ever.
Yes.
In my personal life, in my business, in my job, in my financials, my spiritual, my family, my relationships, like everything was awesome. What would that look like? And then get specific on, I went on a trip with my friends. Me and my husband went on a date every week. Me and my kids did this, and you really just got so clear and specific what that looked like. The path is in the math at that point, right? Because everything can be measured at that point. And so when you're setting your goals, it can be, I have, 24 dates, one-on-one dates with my husband. I have 24 one-on-one with my kids. I set this many appointments. I go to church this many times, or whatever that looks like for you, right? And then it's just holding yourself accountable to whatever it is you set for yourself.
So when you set goals, do you set goals that are achievable? I never did like that in SMART goals where the A was for achievable. I mean, if you can achieve them, why don't you have them now? That just seems so weird.
Some people, I just had this conversation with my team, right? I usually don't hit my goals, a lot of them, because they're just so high. And just like my first year, I set my goal at 85 and I only sold 66, and I was very disappointed about that. And if I would have set it for 50, would I have sold 66? No. And so I like to stretch myself. And yet some people, their minds work a little bit differently, I guess. And then they feel like it's not achievable. So I don't know. For me, I like to stretch myself. And also, when you talk about setting a goal too high and not achieving it, have you ever seen the Gap and Gain book with
Yes.
Dan Sullivan? I love that. And it's like that is one thing, right? High achievers have a challenge with, right? We need to celebrate how far we've come, not, our gap between where we are and where we visioned ourselves. Because, look back and how far we came, right? And so we need
From
to
when we
celebrate.
started, right, until where we are right there, and celebrate those gains as we go forward.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you. I've had tunnel vision, let's just get to the result. And sometimes it was all about results so much that I literally had to write in my calendar, be sure and celebrate the wins. Have you ever been there, or did that just come naturally for you to celebrate every win?
No, I'm pretty sure it took one of the many coaches I've had to tell me, "Oh my gosh, Tara, stop. You're beating yourself up." And I'm like, they're like, "Look what you've done." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I guess, yeah, I've done some things and I'm still not there."
Right. It's because I think as high achievers, we want to always do better, and we know we can do better. And nobody has to beat us up. We beat ourselves up mercifully.
Yeah.
So, do you have any ideas on how not to do that for our listeners?
Well, that goes back to the meditation, right? And the daily wins, writing 3 things that, how you won your day or what you're grateful for, right? So that's kind of like that daily practice of self-care and thinking of the positive things. And what's always interesting too is that a lot of times we have all these goals, and what I realize when I reflect on all the things that bring me joy and make me happy and the great moments that I had, most of them don't really actually cost any money. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, we need money. It's like oxygen. We need it like we need oxygen to breathe. And at the same time, so many people chase after the money.
Yeah.
And it is true, money doesn't buy happiness. So those wins, that victory log that you're talking about, have you kept a victory log with the 3 wins that you have? Are you pretty consistent with that?
Yeah, I have the 5-minute gratitude journal as one of them. And so you write your things every morning and then every night with your intentions for the day and things like that. And yeah, it's just always, it's the times that you're sitting with your girls just giggling and laughing, right? Or it's the sitting outside reading a good book, or it's it's just always amazes me, right? That I think some people just forget to enjoy the present moment, and we just got to slow down a little bit and just really enjoy the everyday little things in life.
When we're talking, though, your team just keeps getting better and better and better. So for the listeners, let's think about when you first started a team. How did you know who to hire and bring on to the team? Did you make some mistakes during that time?
Oh, I've made all the mistakes. All anybody is somebody who's just continued to fail forward when you reach success, right? It's like fail, fail, and then we get this win, and then we fail, fail, and then we win, and we just keep going, right? And what I will say is I did the right thing after Bold and having a great first year. I hired my first MAPS coach, and I've had a coach ever since, and really following the MREA book and building that MREA team. I did a lot of things right, and I did a lot of things wrong, and still failing forward.
Yeah, I love that you brought up MREA. What is one of your favorite models?
The organization model. It's all about hiring the right people, right?
Exactly.
And yeah, it's everything.
Right. So which model did you struggle with the most?
Probably the budget model.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. They don't want to live by a budget. It's like, are you kidding me? I've got money coming in. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I heard somebody, who was it? Somebody said, instead of budget, because everybody it's like if somebody tells you to do something, you want to do the opposite, right? You're just like,
Right.
I don't want to be put in a box. Like, get me out of this box, right? And so instead of calling it the budget model, you call it the spending model. That way your mindset's like, well, I get to spend this much in each area, right? And I'm like, oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's a great way. Just changing words. And this was in Bold that I wrote, and also in the book that I wrote about how words really do matter. Are there certain words that you just won't use in your vocabulary?
Well, we don't say we can't, right? Like what and everything's figure outable, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of words I don't like. There's words that just bring negative energy, or it makes it, again, it goes back to that box, right? And so to make sure that everybody's in a growth mindset and abundance, right? We don't use words like I can't, or there's a lot of them.
Well, it's so funny. When my kids were growing up, that word can't, they thought it was a swear word. And one of their friends said can't in our house, and they went, oh, you're going to get in big trouble. You just swore in my house. And he goes, that's not a swear word. And they go, yes, it is, Mom. He said a swear word. So, it's so funny. Yet a lot of people, they have more can'ts than they have can in their life. Is there ever a time that you can remember when you thought, I can't do that, and yet you talked yourself into at least starting it?
I have a pretty, if you give me a challenge, Dianna, I'm like, let's go. I'm going to do this. Everything is, I mean, when I committed to running the marathon, right? I had never ran more than a 5K. And within a year, I'm running a marathon. Okay. Like, no, I was never a runner. I had never, no. I mean, besides like in, what was it, like middle school or whenever you had to run a mile, was that elementary? Like, I
Yes.
was never a runner. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And yet, guess what? You just start small and you build up, and all of a sudden you're running a marathon.
Okay, so did you take that on as a challenge, or it's just something that you desired to do?
I both. The challenge, I saw it on Facebook. There was a challenge, and I knew that I wanted to maybe someday do that. It was like a bucket list of accomplishments, and it was to support a certain cause or person or whatever. And so it was like a challenge, I would say.
Okay, and you just started small.
Yeah.
Yet, isn't that like everything in your life? When you were building a team, you started small. You don't go out and hire 12 people.
Yeah.
Who was your first hire? Not person, yet the position that they held.
Well, my husband joined me, and he was, he joined me. And then, I mean, our first hire was our executive assistant. The first one, I made a bad hire, didn't last long, like 5 months. I knew it week one, right? And then I hired the best hire ever, Tracy, who's actually with me for 5 years until she relocated. And it was her that built our systems. She hired the next transaction coordinator, listing coordinator, right? So she helped build the team. So it's all about the who.
Well, I agree with that. That's for certain. When your husband first came in, a lot of times when we were coaching, the husbands would come in and want to take over the business because they have a business background. And they thought, well, because I've been in business, I can do this. And it didn't work out. How did you work that out with your husband?
Oh, I would say it didn't really go that way. He just helped me with whatever we needed, right? Because then we had our first kid. And so, if he had to go show houses or do whatever, I pretty much ran most of the things. And then, I mean, he would help learning how to make flyers and do whatever you could to do run around town and things like that. But yeah, you learn real quick that you have to find your lane, and then you guys just stick in your lane, right? And that's how you successfully work with your partner.
Yeah, and so did you guys have lanes, or his was just whatever you needed?
For a little bit, it was whatever I needed. And then once we hired Tracy, it was like we had our lanes. We figured it out pretty early on.
Yeah, well, the reason I bring this up is I'd love to see all of the marriages stay together and actually stay in business, because I truly believe a husband and wife team can do fabulous things. They're a powerhouse when they work together, like you and your husband do. Yet I've also seen people that they don't want to stay in their lane. Both of them want to be in charge. And, well, it's almost like asking your team to serve two masters. Makes it very challenging, and they start losing their team. So how did you approach it with the team? Do you say you're in charge, or do they just know it?
Yeah, I'd say it's just clearly defined roles, right? We've been doing it for 12 years now together. So we're pretty well, I mean, we understand our lanes, and you're just clear with the team of who does what, right? And they know what they can go to Nick for, and they know what they come to me for. And when you're just clear about who does what, and you just kind of all vibe, it just works, right?
Okay, so have you ever had a time when he thought you should do something different? And if so, how'd you work it out?
No, I mean, he's pretty easygoing. Okay, he's really opposite of me, Dianna. I'm a 99D, 97.9, or 97I, no S and C, and he's a little bit more C, mid D. Like, I mean, so we work, like it just works.
Yeah, no, those are great personalities to work together. The reason I'm asking this is because of many of the folks I know out there, and I'm sure they would love for me to ask you this and to find out, because you've got a great team. You've got a great system. You and your husband get along very, very well. And do you know how many people thrive for that? And I think you just hit on it. Stay in your lane. You don't go in his, he doesn't come in yours. And you said the team members know who to go to for what.
Yeah.
So if they come to you for something that they shouldn't, what do you say to them?
Well, you teach people how to treat, or how to treat you, right? And so
Right.
when
I
they
wrote that.
question, and you answer with a question back, they learn to be really resourceful before they come to me. right?
I got it, right. So you're adding value every day to people. You're empowering people. You've studied leadership. When
Yeah.
people get on your team, how do you set expectations with them?
I mean, you have the team agreement up front, right? And then also, I learned after failing many times that, at the beginning, it's like, okay, well, you have to sell this many houses and you have to do this. That doesn't work. It has to be their goals. And so it comes down to really finding out what's important to them, doing the whole goal setting exercises with them, and then holding them more accountable to what they set for themselves, right? And that's the key part. You can't make anyone do anything. So you want to make sure that you're in alignment with their values and understand what it is that they want, and that your team is a fit for that person to achieve whatever it is they want, right?
So you just hit on something really strong there, values. Do you check their values before they come on your team?
Yeah, so about 3 or 4 years ago, I don't even know. What I did actually is I put all of our values across the top, all of the team members' names down here, and me and my director of operations also actually sat down and we put boxes on what values we think everyone had. And what's crazy, there was like 140 some boxes, Diana. We only had 2 different boxes, different. Isn't that crazy? And we knew
Yeah.
right off the bat which 3 needed to go. And ever since then, now, we do the values exercise where they actually, we leave the room and we let them find their values with the cards, and we get it down to 10, and then we get it down to 5. And then we ask questions to be able to see examples of how they align with our values, right? And so you just get better because you learn really painfully when culture gets off, what it is you need to fix and look for in the future.
Well, and
That's
culture is what you create or tolerate. So if someone's doing something out of culture, what do you do? How do you handle that?
Well, it depends what it is. And it's always a conversation first, right? And sometimes it can be, we were very clear when we started together, and this isn't working out. It just depends, right? I've done both.
Yeah, you've had both types of conversations. So teamwork is really important, especially to our listeners. What advice do you have for them in building a team?
I think it comes with, again, when you have common vision and common values and you're all working in the same direction and you all want to add value to people and, grow and you're in alignment, then the team can work together, right? And when people understand it's teamwork, there's no I in team, right?
Yes, I've heard that. There's no I in team. I remember a cartoon that said, yes, that there's an M and an E, and that spells me. So I love that cartoon because it reminds us, no, it's really not about anybody. It's about the collective good of everyone. Now, your friends, in describing you, the 5 words are energetic, unstoppable, fearless, resilient, and loyal. I love that loyal. Loyalty is real important if you're going to build a team.
Yeah.
So what do you do to check out loyalty before you hire them?
It comes down to the check-in, right? Here's what I said I was gonna do. Are you holding up on your part? Am I holding up on my part, right? So you can't expect anyone to be loyal to you if you're not delivering on the value that you said you would either. It's a partnership, right? In that partnership, it comes down to people want to know that you care, right? And when you do truly care and you see the best in people and you're helping them, that's what it's all about. And when you're truly not, eventually your character comes out. And I've seen it time and time again, right? It's all about character.
Yeah, it really is. It's about who you're being, because you have to be it before you can do it. You got to do it before you can have it, and you got to have it before you can give it. And, sometimes people, they just don't think that they can be like you. You're a top producer, you're successful, you build a great team, you're making good money, you're going on great trips, you have a great lifestyle. Yet they don't see themselves as somebody that can be that type of a person. What advice do you have for them?
Oh, anyone can. Anyone. It's like what we talked about earlier. Anyone can, and not everyone will, right? And it's sad to me when the greatest failure, my greatest fear when I sit down on my deathbed and I look back, it's, did I live to my full potential, right? Did I make the impact that I know I could have? Did I live a life authentically to myself? When you look at that, like, you have to take the time. Like, we say in Quantum Leap, right? Like, more people spend time planning their vacation than they do their own life. If you
Right.
just really sit down, right? It's true. It's like, if you got to sit down and you got to create it, right? A life by design. And when you don't sit down to give your life the time and to figure out your values and what's important to you, I don't, that's like my greatest fear for people. And it's what I'm most passionate about, helping people come to realize their full potential and realize what's possible. And then once they decide, it just comes to that decision, and then getting the right people around them and make it happen. Like, you have to believe, right? You've got to dream, you got to believe, and you got to do. There's a lot of dreamers and doers, right? You're one or the other. You got to do both.
Right. Well, you've done both. So when you didn't have anything, you were just starting out in real estate, you were in debt. Did you say anything to yourself? Did you do affirmations? What types of things did you do to build that belief?
Yeah, I had a lot of affirmations. In fact, I still have some affirmations from the beginning over there. It just really came down to every day proving to myself, it's that keeping those promises to yourself. And when you just do the things that you know you need to, and keep those things that you say you need to do, you'll keep showing up, and you just got to show up for yourself. And the challenge is a lot of people will say no to themselves because they say yes to other things, and then they start to lose their confidence, right? And I think just by showing up for yourself every day, you become unstoppable, right? Because you understand that life is hard, and you understand that things are going to happen, and you can get through it. And so you just got to keep going.
You made a great comment there. When things are hard, when you realize that life is hard, in The Road Less Traveled, it says, once you realize life is hard, it actually becomes easier.
Yeah.
So you're a master at being comfortable in your uncomfortable zone. Love to share some advice on how you taught yourself to do that.
I think that when you've been so low, nothing can really scare you too badly, right? Like, I mean, if you've been in that jumpsuit sitting in the jail cell a couple times, like, let's go. I can do it.
I don't want to imagine what it's like. And yet, just to think about that, hearing that jail cell close, you had to be in a state of mind when you said enough is enough. And I love that you did that, because you've shared with so many, you've helped so many, you've coached so many. Now you're out doing Bold, and I love that you're doing Bold and helping others. And that's what life's all about. And you've been a great example of that. You have helped yourself, and you've helped others. You've been through the highs and the lows, even most recently, a lot of highs and lows in your life. And so in your parting words, help our listeners get through some of the low times they have in their life.
I think when it comes down to low times, right? I mean, I joke around, right? And yet there's a lot of hard things out there. You've got young moms with cancer, kids with cancer. You've got people that you lose, death. I mean, in all honesty, it's all hard. And Dianna, like I shared with you, I recently lost my brother last year in June, and he was 26. And I had a lot of soul searching after that, right? And I actually came across this term, post-traumatic growth. And it blew my mind, because I read 50 plus books a year, right? I've been to so many training conferences, and I never heard of that. And so anything hard in your life, it doesn't matter if it was the loss of a loved one or a financial crisis, or, I mean, whatever it is, like you just got to look at it like, what am I going to learn from this? How can I live out for that person that you lost? Or how can you learn from your mistakes of all of your bad decisions and just move forward and just become better, right? I mean, your book, right? We have Becoming More. That's what life's really about. And you give yourself permission to give yourself grace and to get through those hard times and to get better. Everything in life is getting us better for something, if you choose it to be that way.
I love what you said about grace, because I think a lot of people, they don't give themselves grace. And grace plus truth over time does equal change. And if all it is truth that you're looking at, you're going to beat yourself up. And if all it is grace, you're just going to sweep everything under the rug and act like it never happened and never face what it was and never learn from it, right? So we need that grace and truth, and it does take time. I mean, you didn't wake up one morning and say, I'm over everything today.
No, it's a process. It's a process, and sometimes we get better and we think we're through it, and then there'll be like a trigger, and you'll go back to that spot, and then you have to remember, right? And you have to remember that you've moved on, right? Or you've learned from it, and you have to give yourself grace all over again, or you have to just remember that pain and then keep moving forward again and again and again. And it goes back to that life, everything can be hard. You have to choose your hard, right? And I just hope that people choose the right hard and get through whatever it is they're going through.
Right. Well, we certainly appreciate you sharing with us, because I know that a lot of times as we go through things, we don't want to talk about it. We want to hide those things that maybe we're not the proudest of. We want to hide those mistakes that we make. And yet, isn't that how we really learn from our mistakes more than our successes?
100%.
What was a mistake that you would love to share with our listeners today? And what did you learn from it?
Which one?
You get to choose.
I mean, a mistake that I realized that I made from Tanner, my brother, who passed away this last year, and I don't even know if I realized what I was doing while I was in it. But at the end of the year, I looked back and I'm like, what did I just do? And what I realized is that, life is short. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. And so a mistake maybe everything happens the way it's supposed to, right? And it was just, I don't know. But I was postponing some dreams that I thought, I have to wait till my kids are older, or I'm not good enough yet, or who am I to do this, or I need to do more of this. And then I learned from Tanner that, you know what, life is short, and we just need to do it, right? And so if there's something that you're waiting on, or you think you're not ready, and it's in your heart and it keeps speaking to you, like, just go do it. Like, I'm like, why does something tragic have to happen for us to have that aha sometimes of like, yes, I can, and then go make it happen, right? Something tragic doesn't always have to happen. We just need to not make the mistake of thinking we can't, right? Because remember, that's a swear word, and we can, and you don't need to wait, because you aren't guaranteed tomorrow.
Well, none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. I sure am glad, though, that you are saying this, because I know that there's many people out there that needed to hear those words. If it's put in your heart, you have what it takes, or it wouldn't be in your heart. You have a gift to make that happen. And so open up the gift and go out there and become more. And you definitely have helped us today to become more. Let me tell you, I am so excited for this to air on our podcast, and for all of you listening. Hit that subscription button below so you too can hear others on how they became more, so you too can become more, learning from their experiences, learning from their failures, and learning from their successes. Thanks so much for being with us. We so appreciate you. Love your friendship.
Thanks, Dianna.